Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming back for another monthly university colloquium. This is the March series, and we have Stephen Kalb with us, Dr. Kalb with us to talk about embracing the journey in Japanese philosophies. I'm so excited for this, as I think everyone else is, and I'm still letting people in here. And I just wanted to let you know the monthly university colloquium is every month except for April and October. We have either faculty, staff, or somebody else presenting on a topic of their choice for an hour. There's usually 45 to 50 minutes of them lecturing to us through a PowerPoint. And then we have a Q&A at the end, and it ends up being an hour. They can or cannot be tied to CEUs for nursing. This one is. So if you, I need chat. If you are a nurse and you would like CEUs for this, please send me a note to my aspu.com. Is that right? Teresa.Oline. There's so many, right? Teresa.Oline at aspu.com. Yeah. Send it here, and I'll get that certificate out to you for your CEU. Also, I wanted to just plug our graduate colloquium, which is our students who have graduated with their doctorate. You'll be getting multiple, I'm going to send, there's 8 or 9 of them, and I'm going to be sending an invite for each one of those. You can decline that if you don't want to attend, but I really would encourage you to try to attend some of them if you can in support of our students. They have just graduated and they're going to present on their research or their quality improvement project. That's in April, and it's four days. I do like 2 or 3 a day. And so you'll be getting those invites as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Kalb, and he can definitely talk about what he's going to be talking about tonight.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. We've been talking about different ones of these the past year or two, and this was originally when we did it the older way with four separate lectures. So it's been condensed down, and I think the essence of the best of everything. And really, what it's getting into is how do we use some of these Japanese philosophies and tie it together with an emotional intelligence to give us more resilience, more purpose in our nursing world, in our education world, our business world, across the board. So jump in here and just get going with this. The everything in what we're discussing also has some symbolism and some meaning. So even the slide background, we're talking about the wave here. And the wave is in the ocean, in the natural environment. It's one of our most powerful natural forces. We got energy out of it. It can travel enormous distances. It can change the landscape. That same idea of the wave applies to us too. We can be the wave. It symbolizes for us and our students and our colleagues this resilience, just the ability to crash in and you sometimes break things, and yet continue to rise and move forward and adapt to whatever's thrown at us. It also embodies, our natural flow. Sometimes it's a very easy path that we're taking, and sometimes we find a lot of turbulence in our lives, and every single one of us can sit here and go, wow, yeah, I'm doing that right now, or I've just been through that, or yeah, but we deal with it with our students, we deal with it with our patients, especially in our healthcare world. I mean, we're usually seeing people at their worst. So, we're definitely trying to help them mitigate and be their, support for their wave. So what I want to get into today and is this is something that I've studied for a long part of my career, and I'm giving you this upper echelon look at it. But by the end, I want to really show how Japanese philosophies tie to emotional intelligence and strengthen it, and vice versa, building your emotional intelligence and fortifying it with some of these Japanese philosophies make them stronger. Applying the principles to foster better professional growth for yourself, and definitely personal wellness and growth throughout this. Again, 3 segments we'll talk about. We want to incorporate this into our work situation. And that can, again, be in a healthcare setting, a school setting, or a general corporation setting, where how do we change the mindset from running the race to finding that long-term purpose, enjoying the challenges of the role, and getting more satisfaction? Because we have more satisfaction, we're going to be much happier in what we do. Utilizing these principles to build our emotional intelligence skills, to constantly improve, constantly grow. As educators, as nurses, we constantly are striving to grow, and quite frankly, we have to with the ever-changing environment of what we do. So we're going to take a look at that, and then really working on empathetic communication strategies using emotional intelligence and Japanese philosophies, in this case, the philosophy of harmony, to improve how we interact, how we come across. This is something I constantly work on in my work environment, not only for myself, but my staff, to take a look at that and give you a little background on me as we move forward here. There is a growing need for this, I think, in our industries across the board. And for me personally, I currently oversee a large number of ambulatory care clinics with a large staff, some very young, some very mature, and each of them are at a different stage of their lives, and each apply that stage differently to what they're doing. And I think if you're in business or you're in education or nursing, you've seen the same thing. There's very different philosophies on how people approach the work and how they are manifesting through some of these issues that they go through. And I hope by what we discuss here in the next 45 minutes or so will help you deal with some of those situations and educate those guys, and help them. I've had staff who, a client looked at them the wrong way and they're outside the door crying, and this is emotionally too hard for me. And so how do we get this resilience? How do we get this process to support growth and support learning and support a stronger work environment, strong personal ties? So I've had a lot of investment and time in that, and working with people. So we will continue on here. The introduction and why. Why are we doing this? That ties it all together to the current landscape. And this applies to, again, healthcare, business, education. We have high stress, high burnout, constant change. Depending on the setting you're in, I know my morning starts, about 4:30 in the morning, and I'm already getting the call offs and I'm getting the short staff notices, and that just continues to foster and fester throughout what we're doing. So we want to look at that current landscape and how do we make it better? How do we make that grass greener than it is? The goal is to move out of survival mode and go into a thriving mode, and create that resilience, create the purpose, give the spark. So many people need that spark reignited in what they're doing. And the approach is going to be to blend some Western and Eastern philosophies together, and tying it with emotional intelligence. Just give you a quick summary. Again, you may have an understanding of emotional intelligence, or so either EI or EQ, and they're one and the same in the sense that emotional intelligence is more in the academic world, where the emotional quotient is more in the business world. Those are the terms they use, but they are pretty much interchangeable. The idea is that we recognize and understand and manage our own emotions. How do we deal with the situation, or how do we deal with ourselves prior to a situation? And then that automatically influences the emotions of others. If we stay calm and collective and process, most of the time, people will stay calm and collective and process. It involves some things that people are either haven't been taught how to identify it, or have very shaky ability, because again, they don't have a good foundation in self-awareness. emotional regulation, empathy. We think we're being empathetic, but quite not. Um, there looks like someone's saying there's an echo. Does someone have a microphone on? I don't see one. All right, let me adjust here and just see if that gets any better. Any better there? I changed the setting. Okay, I'm going to keep going on. Hopefully, everybody can hear. We want to, part of, I think, one of the most important things about emotional intelligence training and the use of emotional intelligence is we also want to improve our decision making. We also want to, improve the ability for somebody to do what I like to say, work smarter, not harder, play smarter, not harder, and enjoy everything we do. There are 5 principles to emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. I think if you were to, and we can pull this question, I mean, if you have been teaching for a long time, if you've been working for a while, if you are a nurse, you probably could say that the landscape of the people you deal with, the employees you train, the new nurses and MAs and LPNs that are coming out of school have a very different take on these 5 things than what you may have had when you were in that same place 10 years ago, 15 years ago, for some of us longer. And how do we regulate that with the different people? How do we find that common ground? And being aware of these 5 for yourself is going to help grow other people, because as you grow in yourself, you'll be able to teach and counsel people more in these skills. What it does, it enables us to improve relationship, enhance communication, better mental awareness and mental health for not only ourselves, but others. It enhances performance beyond a doubt. It builds a trust. It creates a very common ground for not only your own personal family, but your employees and the families you deal with. I think it's really important to understand that all of these principles that we're talking about here today can be applied to both the work setting and your personal life, in your family, in the dealings with your family, in the dealings with your administration, and dealings with your patients. So all of this can be applied as part of the journey that you're taking with them, leading to improved outcomes in healthcare. If we can teach some of these skills, that we're going to see better health outcomes. Nurses are going to be able to do stronger education with better quality results. So we want to apply these as much as possible. And I think the last one's really important: reduce burnout. There's a lot of discussion right now in the circles, and if you've read some of the articles, that is burnout due to the situation that people are going through at work, short staff, funding, all of these different things, political climate, whatever it happens to be. Is that the root cause of the burnout, or is it our mental and our mental health status and our resiliency also either creating more burnout or the root cause of it, because we can't deal with these other things as well as we used to be able to? So that's a whole nother topic. The other thing I wanted to bring up to everybody, just as we finish up the emotional intelligence section, is if you've been studying this or have been a fan of emotional intelligence learning, it has changed dramatically. I studied under the original Gardner philosophy, and he came out with this in 1983. And he was saying, now I think it had been in very previous, before 1983. I think there was a lot of it going on. It just hadn't solidified yet. But he was really looking at it that it was theoretical. It was conceptual. It was rarely mentioned in business. We never talked about it in business. It was more education and psychological world. It was an emerging concept at the time, and it was an academic curiosity. People were like, "Hey, is there something to this?" take forward, go to 2026, and this has now become probably one of the hot potatoes of the business world. People are driving to seminars. They're looking at coaching and counseling seminars. There's people who specialize in this to bring it to business, to bring it to healthcare organizations, to bring it strongly into education. This 5-part model we talked about, it is regarded as a career superpower. If you can become a student of this and continue to build your understanding of it, it changes your career. It declines what we're worried about here. One of the trends, as we're seeing in so many different things, the population or the popularity of this is hard. We have to fight for it more, especially in the age of AI. People are putting more into AI and forgetting how to apply some of these philosophies to their lives, and we are seeing a lot of dynamic problems from that. It really does enhance performance and leadership. So keep that in mind as we go through. Now let's talk about East meets West. Again, these are designed to enhance each other and grow with each other. And I only picked the top 5 or 6 philosophies as that foundation building as we go through. Starting with the idea of discovering your purpose. This is, I think so many people today have lost the purpose. Why do I do this? I am in the rat race. I hear it in my students. As a professor with Aspen, I teach anywhere from the BSN to the doctoral level. And, I especially in my master's students, they are doing their capstones, they're doing their practicums. And this school is a annoyance. Life has gotten in the way. We have to rekindle that. We need to help people find the passion about learning, the passion about knowledge. You can apply this to any world you are in. So the idea of discovering your purpose here is to, as you can see in the picture, is to find that center. What do you love? What is your passion? Are you good at what you do? I've had a couple of conversations with staff where it's like, why did you get into doing this? And they're like, well, it was the class that was open. I got into it. I kind of enjoyed it. But now that I've done it, I'm not so passionate about it anymore. I'm not very, I think I'm good at it, but the feedback, the quality we do, the quality checks we do, you're maybe not so good at it. Sometimes we need to have that conversation and say, is this the right fit? Is this your passion to do? And that again applies to any industry. And what does the world need? Yes, we need more healthcare workers, but we need healthcare workers that want to be in healthcare. It is not a big secret that going into the healthcare world is not lucrative, much like going into education. It's not lucrative. It can be a lot of hours. It can be a lot of work, especially if you're at the bedside and you're having to move patients, you're having to treat multiple patients, and it gets to be stressful. I think we've lost the ability to manage some of that stress, which then decreases the passion for the vocation. Um, you know, can you be paid equally to what you're getting paid now for your profession? Or is there another profession you can choose that you're going to have more passion about to get the same dollar figure? Again, we didn't jump into nursing and education for the pay. The purpose of it is to, like I said, find that sweet spot to motivate yourself, to keep motivating yourself, to build the resilience, prevent the burnout, and to just keep striving to do better. I know that personally, as an administrator and a nurse, and I've done all ranges of actual nursing. There were days where you're like, and my wife laughs because I'll say, gee, I still have my school bus license. I could probably go, 75 kids versus 10 patients. Yeah, it might be less work and less stress. So really, let's find that purpose. And that's why I start with this philosophy. Reconnect with your passion. And sometimes, again, due to that self-awareness we talked about in emotional intelligence, we need to, again, be self-aware of what's happening to us and how we're dealing with things before we can go help and teach others. How this applies into our different worlds. What's the action that we can see? For nursing, this is how do we sustain and get out of just calling it a job? How do we refocus on that center patient care with a compassionate mindset? Again, if we are in nursing or healthcare in general, we are probably seeing people at their worst, and they look to us for the strength to get them through it, or to support, bad news, or to support the family. It's not just the one person in the bed, but everybody around. It can be very draining. So we have to fortify ourselves. In education, it's how do you connect the educator, the passion, to get your students engaged, to get them learning. One of the great ones I always remind myself of, and we forget it in adult education, is the 70-30 rule. Hey, I'm going to talk 70% of the time, but you guys are going to talk 30% of the time. I want to hear what you need to know. I want to hear your questions. I want you to feel engaged. So putting this into action sparks your passion as well as their passion. The business alignment, aligning those personal values to sustain leadership, to help build employee engagement, to build retention. For us, a great thing that we do in nursing is shared governance. How do we get people engaged in the day to day? So it's not a us versus them. It's administration telling us we got to do this. How do we make those clinics, those floors, those surgery suites, how do we make them better by getting everybody passionate about what we're doing? The idea of just a job is very mind killing. It's very numbing. So, and then of course, I always tie together personal life to find that passion and to keep that passion and keep your center. We need to make sure we're setting boundaries. It's okay to set boundaries, prioritizing our rest, reducing our stress, our busyness. My wife and I, we were just we took a week off last week, and we went to Washington, and we sat and read a book and watched a river go by with otters and seals, and that just decompress and do. That was one little vacation, but we need to learn how to apply this to everyday life, not build up to that one vacation, but to apply it. How do I go home and I have an hour of me time? I'm going to get on the treadmill. I'm going to take the dogs for a walk. I'm just going to go out and look at nature. We were talking about before class started. Hey, in Tennessee, where I'm at, it was 31 degrees this morning and it's 78 right now. It's like, whoa, this is crazy. But in between, it was absolutely beautiful to get outside, enjoy a little sunshine, put your mind into a happy place, and take a walk. So how do we do that? And how do we get this understanding that this is not a static process? This is very dynamic. It's always evolving. We're always having to work on all of these philosophies applying to our life. The next one is this. This is a very business related, but it applies to everything. This embracing of continual improvement. You've probably heard this, and maybe from some of your business lectures. We've seen it creep into the healthcare world, but it was definitely stemming out of the idea of the factory. And this is change, good change for continuous improvement. And the idea of this is that instead of doing massive change, completely rewriting something, throwing it out and starting new, that we are looking at key small steps, that we are putting this in very digestible, manageable processes that make it very easy for the mass population that's having to apply them equally. So the 5S model is the cycle model, the plan, do, check, act, These are a couple of these key techniques that we use in business and in the hospital setting. We can apply them to education as well, to really say, okay, what's right, what's wrong, what do we need to tweak to make this happen? It encourages us to adapt and not fear failure. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure, we learn more from failure than we do success. We have to teach people that that's okay. And our certain groups in our current society cannot digest that very well. Don't try to change it all at once. You know, you're going to get much better. Think turtle and the rabbit, turtle and the hare. The turtle, smooth, easy, moving forward, one step at a time, is going to get to the finish line, but they're going to be a lot less tired. They're going to be a lot more focused. How we see this in action for this is, again, in nursing, simple as the 5 S's: sort, set, and order, shine, standardize, sustain. You know, how do we take that simple and this can be applied to something as simple as medication administration, or it can be, how do we process someone through an OR suite from check-in to recovery? You know, again, it doesn't mean we're changing the whole process. It just means we're breaking it down and saying, okay, at check-in, we'd be much better to do X. It's going to make it flow better. It's going to make the patient more relaxed. It's going to make the nurse's job much easier. In pre-op, we're going to do it this, you know, one thing at a time. The education world is, how do we change our lesson plan? Instead of throwing a lesson plan out and starting all over, how do we make those small little adaptations to our current students' mindset? Something I think a lot of us as educators, and this goes to education and nursing, even just as a mentor, is we forget to go back and look at what we've done and say, okay, how did it work? And what do I need to do for the next person that's coming in? Where, you know, some teachers, some mentors are still using the lesson plan they wrote when they first started teaching the class, or when that first group of nurses came into the floor, and it's outdated. It's not meeting the current needs. It's not a lot of work for an educator to do that, or a nurse to do that. It's just a matter of us stepping back and doing it. And if we do it in small bites, each time we teach it, or each time we teach a skill, or teach a patient, it's easier to digest and fix. In business, you know, having an events board, we can either do it as an event where we get everybody together and we talk through it, or having a board. And this can apply to education and nursing as well. Putting a board up and teaching people about the concept, and saying, hey, put a post-it note up. I think if we changed blue to green, we could see more. Or, you know, and then you start getting the group together to talk about these changes, and then you implement them. But then going back to finding your purpose and what we're talking about, people start getting a investment in it. They start feeling stronger about it. And it is a huge motivator, and it ends up making anything it touches better. In personal life, we're again applying these small incremental changes to your habits, to your diet, to your exercise, to spending time with your kids. You know, that what you do as a fun time versus a work time. You know, you might be one of those people that, hey, a small change of me just blocking out on my schedule every day at 4:30, no matter what, I'm going to make it a habit to go to jazzercise. I'm dating myself. Yoga class or bar class. That you know, and sticking to that, getting it. These small increment changes become habits. Habits become life changing, and that will support, again, a better balance you. The next one we talk about is this idea of embracing imperfection. We have a society, a group of people who have to work on perfection. The idea of this is that perfection is beautiful, or I'm sorry, imperfection is also beautiful. And perfection is very hard to maintain or to reach. So if you're waiting for the perfect moment to apply for a job, if you're waiting for that perfect moment to take the class, if you're waiting for that perfect moment to pop the question, it may never come. You're gonna just go by it. And the idea of taking action in those small increments that we just talked about and doing it, and you might fail. It may not work out. We want to make sure that those setbacks also teach you how to keep moving forward. We also need to teach, I think this is something I work a lot with my students on, is that this resilience, that it's okay. It is not life shattering that you have failed. So many of my students, my nursing students, I maybe grade them for the first time. They haven't gotten a grade because I graded them on their APA format, or I graded them on their content, or I said, "Hey, this is too much. This is not your thought. This is AI." And they lose it. And I think that is very difficult. And we need to, again, teach that resilience and embrace that it's okay. You don't always get an award for everything but you're trying and you're doing. Much like these pots here and these cups, they are not the perfect cup. They're not the perfect pot. One is completely cracked. And it's that's a beautiful thing. I love Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison, I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that it wouldn't work. I didn't fail one. I failed 10,000 times. One I got right. And we look up at the ceiling and we all look at the light bulb. But I failed 10,000 times to get that one right. Imagine if he quit after that first one. Could be still living in the dark. So think that as we go on. How we see this applied is, accepting the emotion, accepting that these people that we're dealing with in healthcare are broken and we are broken. We're not always going to be the perfect nurse. We're not going to be the patient care is not going to go well every single time. We need to embrace that and find ways to add. You saw in those cups the gold, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But how do we add the gold and make us better and stronger than we were before? Finding the beauty in that and understanding its growth. I always worry about a nurse that thinks he or she knows it all, because I've been doing this a very long time, and I'll tell you, I don't know it all. I learn something new every time I talk to one of my nursing students. I keep my mind open to do that. And that's what we want to do with this. We want to keep our minds open, realize that we have flaws and enhance them and work to better them. In education, embracing that education is not linear. We push that box of linear. Yes, you have deadlines. Yes, you have, certain things you have to do, but not every student is going to learn that way. Yes, they all are required to do that paper each week, but how do we, when we read those papers and we put that in, how do we give them feedback to say, hey, this is good, but think this through, or here's this process. I admire my wife every day. She is in education and she works with a full range of students. And they are anywhere from star athletes to people in the industry, to where she does a lot of her work is with learning challenges with neurodiversity. And I watch her every time she talks about, she gets passionate about it. She loves a kid when the face lights up and the aha moment comes. And the funny thing is the kid was doing structure building with spaghetti and marshmallows. Okay, first off, if I had a teacher that taught me how to do that, I would have been, oh wow, that's great. I would have probably eaten the marshmallows, but we how do we find the way to spark that passion in somebody and show them that, hey, it's okay. You've got some bruises, you got some cracks, but look what you can do with this. It doesn't always have to be textbook straight. In business, the same applies. We want to but we want to also foster the ideas of allowing learning through communication, adaptation, talking to an employee about a mistake they made. There's different levels of that. How do we change it into a teaching moment? How do we make them stronger by this adversity? In the personal life, I think that we've talked about that. It covers it all. That there are flaws. Hey, I'm getting older. I don't move as fast. I got wrinkles. The healthcare and beauty industry thrive on some of this, and actually count on it. But how do we take that, what we see, and make it a positive? How do we say, look, I look at what I've been able to do in my life's journey, the content, and looking at the present moment. So many people, I wish I was younger and I could do this. I'm going to get older and we got to plan for certain things, but live in the moment, put this into action. And again, embrace our flaws, which brings us to the next philosophy. Very much combined with the one we just talked about. This is a philosophy and an actual practice in Japanese culture, where they actually take these broken items and they repair them. In this case, you saw these pots with the gold, and it is actually implementing gold laid strengthening to a broken piece. It could be a ceramic bowl, it could be a wooden object, and the philosophy which ties together is there's beauty in these flaws, and there's beauty in the bruises, and there's beauty in this. It teaches us resilience. What was broken can be built stronger and renewed. You don't have to throw it away. You don't have to throw it out. We want to make you as a person stronger. So how do we apply that? Instead of, again, discarding these objects, we want to add beauty to it. We want to, in this case, gold. And think of that bowl in the picture. It was a blue bowl before it cracked. Now it's a work of art. It's the blue bowl is nice. Hey, I always like a good blue bowl. I got a bunch in my kitchen. But this is a unique piece of art. And that's what we have to look at. Every single person we work with, every single person we take care of, is each one is a unique piece of art. And if you're in the healthcare business, in the nursing business, you are putting that gold in. You're the one that's doing the repairs. You're the one that's strengthening them. And it is imperative that we understand that this is okay. The next one we want to talk about is this art of resilience and self-control. Enduring these things that just seem unbearable with patience and dignity. We want to build the resilience by, again, teaching people that facing challenges, they may seem impossible, but we're going to get through them. And whatever that outcome is we want to show they're going to come out stronger. Apply this. Think about your day today. Was there something that you were involved in where you thought, oh my God, I just got to get this day over. I can't deal with this patient anymore. I can't deal with this accounting system anymore. I can't deal with the student and the grading of the papers anymore. How do we turn that around to make that a positive and control ourselves, knowing that we're again, going back to that philosophy we just talked about, we're applying the gold to the situation. How do we maintain composure in high stress environments for our nurses? Running a code is very stressful if you've never done one. But one of the things that I've really realized is that, I've had a couple, even my students, who will be like, I can't come to class. They just disappear from class. And I finally get a hold of them and they'll say, well, we had a code and I took 2 weeks off because I needed to balance myself. I needed emotional wellness and from a code. They are very difficult. I'm not belittling codes whatsoever, but building the resilience to understand that is part of the job. That is part of what we do. I can think of pretty much every code that I've been in. And yeah, we took a moment, we had to go compose ourselves, especially dealing with some of the situations. But then we got back to work. We had to move into the next thing because somebody else, the next one that was a code, I'm going to save. Business crises. At my institution, we use a software program for an EMR. Well, it shut down on Monday. It just turned off. And so we had to go into our downtime procedures and we went back to something that many people are not used to, and that's called paper. And that, whether it be some of our providers or some of our nurses, it was almost catatonic. And we use that as teaching tools to say, okay, let's take it one bite at a time. We don't do this very often. How do we do this? So applying this idea of growth and resilience building and self-control, it will help us become stronger, help us maintain composure, help us to keep calmer. We need to apply that. How we apply that is validating emotions. It's, for nursing, this can be applied to all of these. Validate. I understand this is difficult. I understand you're having problems. How do we get through this? If you remain calm, steady presence. I'm a big dude. I'm 6'1", hefty. And so I have the ability to walk into a room and just by standing and looking at someone, I usually can get people to focus on me and calm down. I'm also part of my nursing world is pediatric adolescents. That's 6'1" and a very large dude walking into a pediatric room and seeing little Timmy doesn't always have the effect that I want, that I'm here to be caring and compassionate. So I've learned to put this into action by my presence, wearing my scrubs that have cartoons on it, getting down to their level. I begin to build their resilience. I begin to build the foundation for our encounter. That's what we want to do. We want to control the situation. Education, embracing that it's going to be messy. If you've ever taught in a classroom, especially younger grades, well, high school too, college, it can be very messy. It can be uncontrolled chaos. And hey, let's embrace it. Let's control it. Let's show growth. Business wise, same thing. Long term, managing those crises, fostering our employee development. The more we invest in our employees, the more they may not stay with us. That's okay. The idea of working for a company for 20 or 30 years is I'm finding very old school. Working for a company for a year or two. Hey, that's great. I've had employees work 6 months and they're out and moved on to the next best thing. But if I could teach them something to make them better to go out, that's what we want to do. Again, recognizing personally that all of this is going to be hard and you want to just continue to build your mental stamina, find those happy places, find what makes you have those happy places, and then apply it to everything we've talked about. All right, couple more and we're done. This one I think is something we've truly lost. And I work with my students all the time. And this idea was inspired by the different trees of Japan. In this case, cherry, plum, peach, and apricot. And the point is those trees, and it's becoming more prevalent here in Tennessee, our trees bloom at different times. This can be applied to the philosophy that your people and yourself bloom at different times. You're going to grow at different rates. It's your own timeline. So part of this philosophy is embracing that you're not on the same timeline. This is not keeping up with the Joneses. This is you are going to grow and focus on your path, and you need to focus on your path to make the best you. You don't have to be better than this person or you're less than that person. You are the best you at that time. Competition is good, but sometimes it has to be healthy competition to make it work. In nursing, we see this as, appreciate that some nurses, some of them are going to excel at crisis situations like a cherry tree. Boom, it's going to grow and blossom and be strong and vibrant, and then it goes away. Or the long term where it has that long bloom, for long term patient support, you're going to have that nurse. That's their center spot. You need to embrace those. We need to apply that. You can see it with your students, and when they get into the floor for this first time, who's going to be able to handle it? Who needs a little more work? Who's going to need to be pulled aside and said, "It's okay, you got this. Let's walk through it together." Education the same way, understanding that your students are going to bloom at different times in your class, and we have to work with that. We have to support it. Business, understanding that one size does not fix all. Carbon copy taking, I'm going to be the same leader as this guy. I'm going to say, I know with my staff, I'm a different leader for each person. I have my general foundation, but I am really trying to manage, keep that peace within them, support them where they are, all while keeping up quality metrics, safe environment, all of that stuff across the board. And in personal life, I can only implore that you embrace this. Trust your personal journey. Don't rush through it. Don't, I've got to be X. I've got to be this. Enjoy the journey. Focus on those little things that matter. Don't miss them. I think every single one of us may have that regret on something. If I had only gone to that baseball game one more time, I wish I had seen him swim one more time. That's, embrace the journey. And I say this to my students all the time. This Aspen and the university is about the journey, not the destination. It's not just about cranking out papers. You got to be passionate about it and understand it. Last couple here. This one is, I think, the first one is hugely important. This is one of those pillars and something that so many of us have forgotten. And that is cultivate the beginner's mind. Think of things, look through everything like you're looking through the eyes of a child. You always look at something like you've never done it before. Approach this with curiosity, openness, willingness to learn, embrace these ideas, explore different perspectives. So many people today, and you can probably think just today alone, you said to someone, well, this is X, and they went, you are absolutely wrong. No way. It's never going to change. I'm not being a part of it. Cross the arms, do the whole 9 yards. But the reality is, with the changing healthcare world, with the changing business world, with the changing political world, we have to look at this with new eyes. We have to look at it with that young eyes. Ever watch a child play? Go play like a child. It doesn't, a little bug to the biggest tree is all a new wonder. It's all amazing. And sometimes we apply the technology and the AI and all those things, and we lose the wonder. Be consistent in creating that thirst for knowledge. Again, we kind of sum that up with putting it into perspective. Patient-centered care. Get the collaboration going. Each patient is unique. Each patient is that bowl, that art. You're applying a finish to it. Foster the curiosity of your students, no matter what we're doing, whether it's in class, on the floor, in business. Foster that. Tell them it's okay to ask the question, why? What if? How come? We used to, get annoyed as parents, be like, okay, stop at the why. Okay, why is the sky green? Those were curiosity at its best. And business question, why do we do it this way? It's okay for someone to ask that. It's how you ask it. It's how you incorporate it. Mix beginners with seasoned veterans. And if you're a seasoned veteran, you're going to enjoy the wonder of the new person. And you may have to stop and think sometimes, goes, gee, he's got a point. Why do we do it that way? I don't know anymore. Why is it? And in personal life, active listening. And this applies again to everything. Active listening. And as it says there, keep the white belt mentality. If you know anything about the martial arts and you go through the different levels, there's other different things, but that white belt is the beginning. It's the first success. It's the first challenge. Always keep that ability to think as a brand new student, and actively listen to what people are saying. That's going to support all of this, and that's why I put it at the end. If you continue to have this mindset, it will foster your growth as well as everybody else. In summary, combine all these concepts to create a holistic experience for you and for the people around you in your professional life, your personal life. Find your purpose and always improve yourself in small increments. You want to lose weight. You're not going to lose 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds in a week. It takes time to sustain it and keep it off. Understand that we are not all perfect, and that perfectionism is something we can strive for, but very rarely do we get it. And that when you're broken and you fill those, and somebody fills those cracks, those gold lines, that's wisdom, that's knowledge, power, and understanding. Practice what you want to become. Build the resilience. Understand that there's going to be good days and bad days, knowing that your path is unique and that you are going to walk. We may walk the same mile together, but it's going to be a different mile for each of us. And of course, keep that open mindset. Humility increases your learning. Humility supports your learning. Humility is learning. Keep that through your mindset as you take this into your day tomorrow. The last piece, which I want to share with you, is the conclusion here. Remember that life is a journey, not a destination. Remember to stop rushing. Bloom where you're going to bloom, where you're planted. Pursue the happiness. Find what makes you happy. And remember to find the meaning in everything and support it. I thank you for your time together. I'm going to open it up to questions. It has been a pleasure having this conversation with you. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalb. I'm always fascinated by anything that you present. I think that you would probably be one of the best individuals to teach other people about emotional intelligence and all of those different items that you did discuss. I do have one question before anybody else pops on. I don't know if it's a question for you or if it's a comment, but you mentioned that we need to learn to navigate between the different generations, how emotional intelligence looks different, and our concept of that is different at our age than it does at our, and I'm talking about nursing in general, because that's I am an RN. Then the nurses that are coming into are, well, how old would they be? They'd be in their young 20s, probably. It looks completely different. They're completely different. And do you think that we can get them to embrace the finding beauty in the effort? Can we get them to actually embrace that?
Having tried and succeeded and failed multiple times, I have a staff that ranges from 18 years old to 71 years old. Very different work philosophies, very different emotional standpoints. My wife and I talk about this all the time. It starts young. That's why teaching us this is great, but we need to apply this to our elementary school kids, our middle schoolers, because it has to get ingrained with that. Getting them at, like we get them now, you're talking the same thing, 20-year-old RN, first time on the floor. I've had nurses the first day who will they yelled at me when I was asking what their medications were, and they were out of the room crying. I mean, half an hour in my office, tears, the candy jar, the tissues, the whole 9 yards. And I think we can, and I've applied these principles to say this is part of life, and they're not used to that. This is, the technology has not taught them that. So yes, we can succeed, but this is why we have to be comfortable in ourselves to be able
Hmm.
to teach it and to be
Hmm.
able to help people navigate it. It has failed many times with me. I mean, I've had that conversation like, I think this is not the right place for you.
Hmm.
Not because your mental health needs to be paramount. Now, on the other
Hmm.
hand, that term mental health also, it can be detrimental in that the moment I have an issue, I'm going home because my mental health can't
Yeah.
take this. No, 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 no. You're a nurse. You are working your shift, and you're responsible for these 12 people.
Hmm.
Let's take a minute, step back, take a breath, get a cup of coffee, and now we got to get back to work. That
Hmm.
resilience is something that we definitely have to instill, and I know we've embraced it and incorporated into our onboarding, and really spend some time talking about that, not just chucking them in the floor, but hey, we're going to spend some time talking about, okay, you're going to have a bad day. Let's talk about the bad day, not the good day, the bad day, and how we can manipulate that.
Hmm. I've had some experience with tutoring nursing students for NCLEX, the ones that are repeat test takers. And I've had some experiences where the student has asked me to speak to their psychiatrist because of their mental capacity, even to sit for a board test and take that. And I agree. I worry about when they do pass the NCLEX, how they're going to do on the floor in a nursing role, and how to I only have like 2 hours with them. So I don't have, a whole lot of time with them, but how how they'll do against the nurses on the floor that are from Generation X, who aren't in that state where we're it's all like you just explained. I'm gonna have a complete breakdown because of this, and this, when we just pushed through. We didn't
Yeah.
get to have a break. We didn't even get to go get coffee. We just had to regulate immediately and go on to the next thing. And so I'm really concerned about that in the nursing workforce. Um, and great tips though, that it does have to come from us up
Yeah.
here and trickle down into our younger generations. One other thing I
Definitely.
wanted to mention was, when I was in nursing school, they always said nursing is an art. That was just something that my nursing school always used. Nursing is an art. And it kind of wraps around that it's a calling, not just a job. And that was
Mm-hmm.
also very much pushed in my nursing program back, 150 years ago. I'm wondering if we start to just tell me what you think. If we start to push, um, if we start to push that, which I think is correct, in order for us to get the right kind of mindseted people, and children and young adults into nursing that are going to be able to look at this profession the way that they should, do you think that will affect the shortage issue though? Because I feel like they're going into nursing a lot of times not because they feel like it's a calling, not because they feel like it's an art that they want to live their life, that it's a job and they know that they're going to have a job at any point because of the shortage. But if we start to, and I don't know, whoever, right? But if the message starts to be, let's choose this as not just a job, but a calling, do you think that would have an effect on students saying, yep, okay, I'm not going to do this then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that could be applied to anything we talk about, not just nursing. You know, I tell you, I took inspiration from my wife and her teaching in that she does a lot of work, and it makes it part of the curriculum of executive functioning.
Mm-hmm.
How to We don't teach that anymore across the board. How to be a person, how to be, back when Claire Barton and I went to nursing school together, we talked about these things. How do you be this person? How do you anything can be a calling. It could be a calling to be a salesperson, it'd be a calling to be a nurse. And that's why I talk about that passion, finding your passion, not just, ooh, I can get a paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
because that paycheck will only last so long. It
Mm-hmm.
it it, it mean the glory of it. We all get a paycheck, But I think the sooner we can get this, the earlier we can get this into the mindset of our youth, of our young adults, the more we'll turn around. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of work, but it will take time. But once we build that foundation and realize failure is success, realize this is your passion, this is your calling, be in love with it. That is going to strengthen, and we're going to see the dip, but then we're going to start seeing the rise as people actually look at what they're doing. I think, a couple coming from a university point of view, look at some of the degrees we offer. Yeah, they sound really cool. What do you do with it? But if you're passionate about it, you'll find a way to make that work. And I think we also, I remember nursing school, you almost had a scare tactic going, hey, this is going to be nice. You're going to have this nice uniform and you're going to do all this. But by the way, this is what you're going to look like at the end of the shift. There's the bedpan and there's the changing and there's this, and they're going to throw stuff at you. And it's like, you almost need to talk about the non-glorious side to support that. And some people will be like, okay, beauty school. Yep. Down the corner. Yeah, I'm gone.
Right.
Or auto mechanic. We need everybody to do something, but we've got to show that some things need, everything needs a passion. I went to school with a person who, man, you asked him what 2 + 2 was, he couldn't tell you the answer. You asked him how to fix a 8-cylinder engine, that guy could climb in the tailpipe and out the front and fix everything in between. That was his passion. Doing math wasn't. So yeah, I think we need to work on that. I think that's our charge. And especially if you are a nurse now, when we took our nursing oath, it was not only for our care of our clients, but the care of the younger generation of nurses.
Absolutely. And Dr. Ballard says staying grounded in your purpose and your why is essential. It's what builds and sustains resilience, which is so true.
Great words. Great words.
Great words. Does anybody else have anything to say? Want to come on camera and have a question or have a comment or anything? We are at the top of the hour, but we still have time. Christina, hi.
Hi. So I started the call in the car because I was driving home from school because I was supporting students. So I just want to say, first of all, I mean, Stephen was very kind to acknowledge the work that I'm doing, but this is a passion for our house. Like, we so believe in resilience and emotional support and emotional intelligence. And that's how we're going to move forward in areas of education and healthcare, and really creating those safe spaces for everybody. And it takes everybody coming together to do that. And it just cannot be overemphasized because we're all tired. Right? Like, we're all tired, but how do we go forward? And you're talking about the why, and I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan, and his books on Find Your Why, and then Leaders Eat Last, like all of those are exactly that too. There's so many people who say this. There's a lot of traction here, and I'm just really grateful that there's people like all of you who want to learn more and grow together, because that's how we get better, is that we do it together as a village. So thank you for this opportunity for everybody.
I learned everything from her.
Christina is Stephen's wife, if anybody didn't know that.
So they're put that together.
They're a great team together. Wouldn't you just want to sit down with them and pick their brains? I do.
Thanks, guys.
Anybody else have anything to say before we close her up for the night?
I love the comments.
I think that's everyone. So again, Dr. Kalb, I'm just so blessed to have you here with us. You spoke last year at the colloquium and had a four-part run, and it was incredible. Every single time you open your mouth is just incredible words and messages, and I hope that you'd be willing to come back again for another round next year. And
always.
Everyone, remember, if you're a nurse, send me an email and I will make sure I get your CEU out to you. Otherwise, have a great night, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Reach out if you have any questions.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you.